Speaker, tēnā koe, tēnā tātou katoa. You know, it'd be really great. One of the good things about kind of not being in the mainstream parties is that you listen to these debates that go on and you actually recall the previous government and this government, and I would have to say that the performance of the previous government in housing was not that hot. Mr Speaker, today at question time there was a debate about the unacceptably high levels of rheumatic fever in Māori, Pacifica and high deprivation communities. Approximately 146 people die per year from the complications of this condition, and the majority of them are Māori and Pacific. But although the ongoing cost of treatment is estimated to be costing the health sector at least $10 million a year, the reality is that this is a condition of poverty, and it also is a condition of very poor housing. It's going to take a lot more than just the health sector to get it right. Rheumatic fever is associated with poor living conditions, socio-economic deprivation and overcrowded housing conditions. In the case of Purerua woman, Toa Whino in my electorate was a classic example of the link between housing and health. The extreme dampness of her state house's bedrooms forced the family of four to sleep in very cramped conditions in one room, and her son, who was only 15 months old, her daughter, 14 years old, with chronic asthma, and of course she herself with a chronic heart condition. Insulation was supposed to be installed in September 2009, but 9 months later in June this year it still has not happened. However, I understand that just in these recent weeks she's been moved. And so it is useful to see up front in Vote Housing the recognition from this minister that many of the existing houses are not insulated and need to be modernised and reconfigured, and I believe this minister is going to do a great job. I congratulate Minister Heatley for his assurances to the Select Committee that another 8,000 upgrades are planned, and the only question that I would have is that it's hard to understand quite where the resourcing might come from when the $124 million stimulus appropriation granted in 2009-10 has come to an end. Of course, the condition of existing state houses is not the only issue of concern, and it is also the priority according to the state housing waiting list. There's some huge issues for us in terms of the numbers of whānau and severe and persistent housing needs, and these are whānau who are seriously at risk because of their housing circumstances that are unsuitable, inadequate or unsustainable. We know 67% of Māori are renting or boarding, with approximately 72,000 Māori occupants residing in state houses. More than 55.7 of Māori living in state housing are under the age of 20, and we know also that Māori are particularly prevalent amongst the homeless. We are inevitably concerned when we learn of the intention to reduce the waiting list significantly by being able to free up spaces on the waiting list for people with real need. The question we ask now is, how is real need defined? Is it people located in overcrowding and inappropriate housing, young and vulnerable New Zealanders, those who are homeless? But we also have some concerns about what will happen in the decision to encourage applicants who no longer meet the category of housing need to apply in the open market and private rental accommodation. It cannot be overlooked that racial discrimination affects our access to housing. A couple of years ago, the reality of racism in the housing market became known through the exposure in the media of a South Waikato landlord and a Tauranga property owner who declared that banning Māori tenants made good business sense and should be allowed. Such comments only scrape the surface of the levels of institutional racism which other researchers have identified. In this context, the suggestion that we would like to put forward to Housing New Zealand is that they could play a role in mentoring potential tenants or providing with letters of reference to support Māori, Pacifica and ethnic minority tenants to enter the rental market on a strong footing. Finally, we note the minor but significant paragraph placed at the end of the report, which outlines some of the great initiatives that the Māori Party have been involved in.